So welcome everyone to Monday morning. It's snowy here. Hopefully someone else has some beautiful snow too. We are gonna just jump right in today. We have a few more questions that have been emailed to me that aren't on the agenda, and I'll pop those in too. We'll start with the minutes approval. I sent the minutes out last week, so hopefully you had time to look them over. Are there any corrections, clarifications that anyone's found that need to be made? Can I have a motion to approve the previous minutes for the cataloging committee?
I did have 2 changes to the minutes.
Okay.
Or a change to the minutes.
And what are those?
Oh, never mind. You guys already updated it? Never mind. I take it back.
Are you referring to the 655 comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually discussed at the last mentor meeting, not at the, so it won't be a change to the minutes, but we will discuss it today. Were there any other corrections, clarifications that need to be made to the October cataloging committee meeting minutes? Will someone make a motion to approve them as they stand?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as they stand.
And that was Tracy. Second?
I'll second it. This is Anne.
Thank you. Okay, if in virtual meeting process, is there anybody opposed? All right, minutes are approved. In the member comments and questions, I had a couple other questions sent to me this morning, so I'm going to pop them in here instead of adding them to the agenda. And I'm just going to read them off to you. The first question is, when a record says bibliographic references in the 504 field, but the references are all websites, is that truly a bibliographic reference? I think, John, you said you had an answer perhaps to this one?
Well, I remember having a discussion not too long ago with Lisa regarding this topic, and I'm not going to pretend that I know the college professor textbook answer to this, but I would love if anybody else has a different opinion to talk about it. But basically, what I said was there's no objective way to answer this question first. And the 504 note says includes bibliographical references. So what constitutes a bibliographical reference? And we know that this was a lot easier to answer decades ago than it is now when there are all kinds of different types of references, right? So what I told Lisa was that if you find information that historically has been consistent with a bibliographic reference. So we're talking about publisher, and we're talking about publish location, and we're talking about publication date, things that you would find in the 264 field. That's going to be a much fuller bibliographical reference than just listing a book or listing a website. So at the end of the day, it's a subjective decision. Does this constitute a bibliographic reference? And we probably should have some spelled out SAGE guidelines for this. But really, it depends on what you find and whether it meets that definition to you. Did that just make it more confusing for folks? Because that was not my intent.
Oh,
Lisa, well, did I get that right? Do you need to clarify, Lisa, what I said? Did I say anything?
You did really good. I think it was more what my question to you at that time was more, there was not an actual bibliographical reference. They were all websites. They were not the publisher's website, but a website that you logged on to get the extra stuff for the book. And so you and I agreed, I thought we agreed, that we would do just a includes bibliography and index, because there was not any true paper stuff to refer to.
Yes, the webliography.
And bibliographical.
I despise making up words in
Yeah.
that fashion, but hey, I'm not in.
Bibliography is the word, but bibliographical wasn't. So, and because we did, here, let me put this in here. This was what we referred to. When I pulled it from, I went to the LOC page, and we referred to this actual sentence where if it includes the bibliographical references and index, that means it can include bibliography, webliography, and index. But where there was absolutely no bibliographical references and a single website, we went ahead and said that we would do the top one with the includes bibliography and index. Is that how you remember it?
Yeah, that sounds about right. And we did find that that term is actually used in OCLC. So despite my protests, that is a legit term, webliography.
And this is the example that I just popped up on the screen that was sent in this morning, the way the 504. So Tracy, you're here, right?
Yes, and I did not include the page number because I wanted to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a page number, and it was called a bibliography, but there was no bibliographical references. It was all web sites.
That was what I ran into, Tracy, exactly.
So it's listed as a bibliography.
And it's
Yes.
a list.
However, it doesn't meet criteria for bibliographical references. What it is a webliography, and they just called it a bibliography. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I guess
Exactly.
now we need to ask the question, does the 504, is it as written on? No, it's not. It's not transcribed. It's recorded information. So now the question is, do we have license to call it a webliography, despite the fact that it says bibliography on the item? Really, every single one of those, is it just one page? Or is it
I
multiple
believe
pages?
so. I don't have the item right in front of me. I'd
Oh,
have
I
to
see.
go back
Mine
to
was-
the library.
Sorry. Mine was a single page, and it was an unnumbered page volume to boot.
So,
Um,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, so this is Sarah Samuels in Hood River, and I have a tiny bit of input on this. Not especially authoritative, but I do remember in library school in the cataloging classes that I had, and one of my professors saying it had actually come up about an index instead. Something was labeled as an index in the book, and it wasn't. It was more like what we would consider a table of contents, but it was called an index. And we were wondering, do we record this in the 500 or 504 field? And she said, just do record it. Do like, if the book calls it an index, record it as an index. If the book calls it, and so I would tend to think I mean, I don't actually, that was that professor's take on it. And I don't know how authoritative that is, but it's a reference point that I work from. And so I tend to think, oh, I just put in what the book says. Does that make sense? I'm not
Yes.
sure if that's what we want to do sage-wise, but that's,
It certainly makes it more objective.
yeah.
So I'm for anything that takes the subjectivity out of it, where it could cause problems in the future doing that. So I'm not opposed to that idea at all.
Well, and you know that a lot of the high school kids, when they're writing their papers now and they have they're bibliographical references. A lot of them are web-based as just
Mhm.
common, it's just common now. So does anyone have any there's nothing hard and fast here. It seems a little bit of catalog or judgment, but does anyone have any strong opposition to the going with what is in the book? I mean, that seems the most, it seems to be along the lines of cataloging the
Right.
best.
If it says bibliographical references, that is how I would record it. This one said for further study, or it did not say bibliographical at all.
Got
It said for more information or visit this to, I can't remember now and I don't have the book with me, but it did not say bibliographical because I would have recorded it that way. Then, yes, that takes the
Excuse me.
subject back.
May I cut in? This is Leslie. I have book in hand.
Okay.
And what it says at the end, it says Internet Resources, page 297, General Index 307, and Index of Sample Letters 313. And that's all they have.
Is this for the cover letters and Knock 'em Dead record that we're looking at?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
12th edition.
Okay.
So we have multiple indexes, right?
Yes.
And then what was the other? The other was internet resources, it said.
Yes. Let me look again for you. Where was that?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
for
It says
clarifying. Sorry.
that's okay. Chapter 10 is the sample letters, and then it says Internet Resources, 297, General Index 307, and then there's an Index of Sample Letters 313, and that's it. And that's the end of the table of contents.
Okay, my memory did not serve me correctly. I thought it said bibliography, but I think when I pulled the record in, it came up with this bibliographic references.
When you turn to the page in the book where those web references are, does it have, what is the heading on that page versus the table of contents heading? So are they identical?
It says Internet Resources,
Resources.
and then it says associated sites, career and job coaches, career assessments, and it goes on. And then some more, it's just websites, and then it gives for more information, and then I have just a general index in the back.
I've cataloged a
And that's
book recently that had a lot of suicide prevention and help links in the back. And I believe I put a 500 in to state that they were in it because they were not referenced as a bibliographical, or they were stated as resources in the header.
Yeah, not just listening to the discussion, that sounds more like 500 content land to me than 504 bibliographical references, but I don't know. It's always an attempt to try and make it more objective, but it's always going to be catalog or judgment.
In this case, do we have a sense of what would help the patrons more? I don't know, and it's not academic setting, or at least for, some of you are academic libraries, but what people are looking for in a bibliographical references comment. And I'm thinking out loud, I don't actually have this sorted, but if that could help us, if we're trying to have a policy on it, if that helps us decide what the policy is, perhaps just making the comment of what, if we can tell that they're web resources, calling them that, or I don't know, but we kind of try to think end result on it.
Well, there's a difference, and there's a lot of gray area, but there's a difference between web resources that are helpful to the patron for what you're trying to accomplish, and then web resources that were referenced, that were used to create the content of the book that's in front of you,
That's a good point.
right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
is that, and you know, no hard and fast here, but is that kind of a general 504 versus 500
That makes sense to
distinction?
me.
I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
John George just chatted in that he agrees with that, the difference between the 504 and the 500. And if you're looking at it, which I think is an excellent point, what's most helpful to the patron? If there are resources there that would be helpful to the patron, I think it would be helpful to note them in the 500.
Well, if
Yeah.
it was just an index without the bibliographical references, it would be a 500 note. So I would lean more to changing it to a 500 note saying web resources or whatever the title of that page is that's in the book, and index includes the bibliography and index. But that's just how I'm leaning right now.
Well, I think that that's kind of the way it's going to have, from what I'm hearing and from what I understand also, that it will be a case by case to sort it out. I don't think there's going to be a hard and fast rule for this, like John said.
Well, the 500, well, I was thinking oftentimes the 500 is quoted, right? So that's transcribed directly from the resource. So you have no rules about what vocabulary you can use. Whereas I'm not sure that's the case in a 504 note, where we have certain terms that we use to record information in the book. Gets a little tricky when you have web resources versus webliography versus webliographical. Lisa, did I get that right? Good night.
Very well.
But
Because then sorry, we
I was
got to
just going to
remember
say
that.
we continue to monitor OCLC's page in 504 land to see what terms crop up there. Anyway, go ahead, Lisa.
Well, and then I was thinking too, because we got our little content box for the, there's nothing up there to let us put in a specific webliographical, sorry, didn't mean to do that, webliography. There's nowhere to put that in our little content box up there.
Oh, you mean fixed field, or do
Yes,
you mean
sorry.
contents, 505 contents?
No, I'm looking at the fixed field and saying CONT in my head, the little B.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Because there's nothing to define the webliography, unfortunately, yet. There should be soon, I would think.
Yeah, if you see that code on OCLC and don't see it in Sage, we can get that corrected. But I'm assuming that you have not seen one on the MARC code end. Correct or not correct?
I haven't particularly been looking, but I don't recall seeing it.
I have not.
Okay.
Again, I haven't looked either, but no, I have not seen it. That'd be cool.
Okay, so in the interest of time, Tracy, how did John used to say, clear as mud, shall we go forward? Or does anyone else have any other comments on this particular question?
I think sounds good. Just want to, when I go forward on this, I would use includes and use the wording in the book as to what it calls for, which was internet sources and index.
Right, and that would be a 500, correct?
Internet resources, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Internet resources and index and a 500.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That at least clarifies that.
Okay, so then the second question, when subjects are duplicated but have different sources, such as the LOC and FAST, are we retaining both? And I do remember this being discussed at different times. Are there any of the mentors that know of a hard and fast rule for this question?
We are letting fast headings stay in records. There's no reason to delete them.
Truthfully, we're not really sure yet what the functionality of fast headings are going to be in the future. They function a little differently than our normal Library of Congress subject headings, but they are based off of them. They're based off the same vocabulary. So right now they kind of are redundant. However, the future functionality has not been determined yet. So that's why we are retaining them. Does that make sense?
That actually seems pretty clear. Did anyone have a question about that? Further questions?
This is Lori, and I don't think we should be eliminating any of these subject fields. I know it doesn't look good. I mean, obviously, if you see foreign language subfields that don't pertain to the item in hand, those could get removed. I mostly see those in academic books, but I suspect that the FAST fields will become, I think they will become the standard even. And because of the metadata aspect to them. The other thing is people sometimes remove the BISAC, and we shouldn't be doing that because some of the libraries do rely on those. I know Hood River for years has tried to get us to quit removing BISAC.
I know that not all of the libraries, when you're importing from Z3950, some of them routinely have the extra subject headings and some don't. So if you are pulling one from one of the libraries because it's the more complete record, then it sounds like the general consensus is to just leave those, even though they look odd from the patron's view. That's
on a different note, something that I find irritating, and I have asked Beth for clarity on this, but I'm not sure. I don't think we haven't decided as a group, but you know, the extra reference codes behind some of the records, if you pull it up and you get the full authority record code for OCLC, for instance, behind a string of 6XXs, those are superfluous to our system, but I guess we aren't advising removing them because some catalogers might not recognize the critical parts to retain. And that makes a record ugly. But what I would say is if you can find a record to import without the extra OCLC reference codes, I would import the cleaner record in that case.
Those are ones
are you
with
referring-
subfield 0?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, oh,
When
I'm sorry.
when
Can I
I
just
pull
ask-
in our yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say when I do authority control on these records and bring in our authority subfield 0, there's a tag that allows me to remove the existing subfield 0s and replace it with the SAGE ones. So I just need to make sure that that's in place so those go away in favor of our SAGE subfield 0s.
that's an easy fix.
Okay, thanks, Beth. I think this is Sarah that clarified. I wasn't quite sure what Lori was saying, but now I hear, so it's the OCLC authority codes for the 6XX fields that we don't want to bring in. Is that but it's fine to bring in. I just wasn't sure, Lori, which code you were talking about, but I think I have it now. Okay, thanks.
Any other?
You know, I haven't even noticed, do those display for patrons, Beth? Before they get removed, or is the patron having to look at those? I've never gone and looked at the OPAC to see if they see those extra.
No, they don't.
Zeros. They don't see them, the patron.
No, they don't. Unless for some reason they want to look at mark display in the catalog, which I don't know why a patron would. But yes, they do not display in the regular catalog display.
I know why a patron would. Because they used to be a cataloger.
Yeah. Yeah, in which case that may or may not bother them. So yeah, because they're experts at that point. But yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, I think that's an easy fix. That might be the easiest question of the day. That's happy. So we're still in member comments and questions. Is there anything else that's come up for people that they want to throw in here? Other questions they've had? Okay, we're going to move on to new business, but I will at the end of the meeting open it up again for any questions that have come up. So we'll have time later. The first item on the new business is to please check the cataloging contact sheet, which is, the link is there. It's on the Sage webpage. Beth has been editing it, and it would be fabulous if you could pop into it, check your library, make sure all the information is correct. If any changes are needed, just fire off those changes to Beth, and her email is also in the agenda if anyone needs it. Are there any questions about how to find the contact sheet? All right, that was easy. Next on new business, this is 655. This is just an extension of the discussion we had at the last cataloging meeting when we were talking about how we always want to source the 655s. And during that meeting, I brought up the two exceptions, one being young adult fiction and one being large type books. And then it was pointed out at one of the last mentor meetings that there are two other exceptions to the rules for board books and young adult literature. So those four that are listed in the agenda, to my knowledge, are the only 655s that you do not need to source in your records. Questions about that, clarifications or corrections?
Just appreciate having the information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that one was easy also. Next, so DVD searches, when you're bringing them in from Z3950, and Dia brought this up, we discussed it at the last mentor meeting, and it's recommended to do multiple searches. So scan your UPC into the ISBN field. Also scan the UPC into the UPC field. You might get different search results. Sometimes you'll get different records in each of those searches. And then if you do it a third way, where you do a title and author search using the director's last name in the author field, that can pull up different records also. So the recommendation is to please do multiple searches before you actually select the record that you want to import, just to help you find the best, most complete record. And this was Dia's, Dia brought this up. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Dia?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mic thing.
That's all right.
No, I think you covered it. Other than I have found that the searching the UPC in the UPC field isn't generally as good a search as the other. And the reason why we suggest searching those two different fields is because some libraries index the UPC and the ISBN still, and some have moved it like we have into the UPC index itself. So that's why we suggest searching multiple ways. But I have found it's usually better to search the title author than the UPC field. So.
Does that make sense, everyone? Are there any questions about it?
One other thing that I do on the search by title and author, instead of using the director's last name in the author field, I will use the either the distributor or the publisher in the keyword, and that'll throw up some stuff too.
It's another good idea. So basically the recommendation is just do multiple searches to make sure you're finding the most complete record, which will be less work for you also.
This is Lori, and I'm devil's advocate again. One of the problems with using a more general search, and even sometimes using UPC and ISBN or UPC field, is confirming the format of that DVD. I try to just pretend like I didn't notice at times. I will attach to an existing Sage record, especially on an older movie. But that is something we should be watching on new records, I suspect. And I hate it because the print is so small. I have to keep a super duper magnifier here just for DVDs.
Mine lights up, Lori.
Mine does too.
Aren't they awesome?
So I don't know if that's of interest to the common cataloging group or not, but that is something you should be watching for, because sometimes it looks like we have duplicate records on a system, but they can actually have hard and fast different playback formats, which is a pain.
Right. So as you're reviewing the records that you're thinking about bringing in, just really look at all the details and make sure you're matching item in hand to the different fields that you're seeing. On to 852s. This is the next item on the agenda. Don't worry about these. Beth is taking care of it. It's like the easiest thing to even say. If you see 852s, don't worry about it. Go on with your day.
I actually did a cleanup on all of these. I think it was Thursday or Friday. So the 852s that were in the last 4 months of new bib records are gone.
Great. And for future reference, Beth, this is something that might pop up again in the future, or did you block it with the authorizing?
You might see it in the future. Certainly these 852s exist in older records because of migration. You feel free to delete them if you want to. They don't display to the public. So there's really no hazard for them being in the catalog. So I guess, yeah, not something to be concerned about.
Fantastic. Oh, we're cranking along now. So what I'm going to try to do is hand over the screen to Beth. The next couple items on the agenda are things that Beth and Dia are going to go over. So I'm going to let them find you on here, Beth. Well, Okay. So if I just make you a presenter, you'll be able to take it over, right, Beth? Hit the screen. Okay, Beth, you should be the presenter now. If you want to talk about the pre-cat records with Dia.
Okay. Dia, did you want to start, or you just want me to start and you fill in?
I'll just fill in.
Okay. One of the things I was scrambling together this morning, and I don't have it quite there yet, was coming up with an example of one to transfer. But I'll start the discussion. Pre-cats. For those of you that don't know what they are, these are what are sometimes referred to as fast add records, as well as pre-cats. These are the items that get added to the system when you go to check out an item and the barcode comes up as not there. And the system will give you an opportunity to enter it into the system as a pre-cat. Sometimes these are situations where you've got an interlibrary loan book that you've brought in from another library, and of course there's no barcode in our system for it, but you want to be able to check it out in our system. So these ILL records have been entered as pre-cats. And in that case, what should happen when that book comes back in is that that ILL record should be deleted, which doesn't always happen. And then we've got cleanup to do. Another situation where pre-cats are used are if you've gotten a stack of books in and a patron's desperate to borrow a particular item and you haven't had a chance to catalog it yet. You can slap a barcode on it and send it out the door by entering one of these pre-cat records. So I pulled a report recently of all the pre-cats that exist in the system right now. And so you can see there's quite a few. And the goal is to have these items transferred to a regular bib or to delete them. And so I can share this list with anybody who's interested. I can help them with cleanup, that kind of thing. But what we're going to go over today is how to actually transfer an existing pre-cat to an item, to a bib in the system. So let's go back to, I'm going to put this full screen, hopefully, so you guys can see that better. I'm going to bring up in item status a barcode that Legrand let me know that is an ILL and I can delete it. So I'll give that example first. Obviously, if I had the item in hand, I could just scan this into the item status screen, but I don't. So I just got to type it in and hope I got all the numbers right. Let's see. So it shows up on the screen as a pre-cat. The due date was 9/22/2020. Shows the location, cataloging, and what the title is. At this point, I gotta drag some things out of the way so I can see my actions. Okay, under actions, this is already highlighted. I could delete this item. And now it's gone. I'm hoping that in the new version, this doesn't come up. because it's like, well, obviously it's not found. I just deleted it. What it's trying to do is it's trying to show on the display what the changed item would look like, but in this case it's deleted, so it can't find it. But it's kind of a little annoying message, so hoping it goes away. For the case of transferring, John, I hope you'll help me work with Cove School on this, but I found one. And no, I was talking about John Brockman.
Oh, okay.
Because they help catalog items for Cove School. So I'm going to try and scan in an item that they had done as a pre-cat. Whoops. Okay. Oh, had too many 9s in there. Let's try this. Okay. So here is one that Cove School wanted to check out for one of their students. It got entered as a pre-cat and has never been transferred to an actual bib record. Ideally, this would be something that I would do with an item in hand, but because I need an example for you guys, I'm doing things kind of out of the ordinary.
Beth,
So,
does that have just one circ, or does it have multiple circs on it? Just out of curiosity.
okay, well, let's bring up the detail view and see. Total circs 1.
One circ, okay. I would just be interested if it had, like, 8 circs on it or something. It's just like, oh, I cataloged this book. And it's just not attached to anything. But that's not the case.
No, it's not the case. So let's go back.
This is Lori. Why does it say database ID -1? Is that because it's been deleted?
No, the database ID is actually, because these are items that kind of exist on their own in a way. They've got a call number that has a database ID of -1 and a bib ID of -1, which means that they're not viewable by anybody except for, it's kind of a behind the scenes thing. And these items had to be all associated with some kind of call number and bib, but not one that's identifiable, broken out by library, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So every once in a while, that -1 call number will get changed, and I'll have to change it back on the database end. Like the call number will change, or the owning library will change from Sage to a specific library. If that happens, just let me know and I'll fix it. But normally these pre-cats are also associated with Sage. They have a location of Stacks, which is a Sage location. So they're in this generic holding place until they can be transferred to a regular bibliographic record. So in this case, we've got C as for Coyote. If I wanted to bring up the author, I could do that. See, these are, okay. They are called dummy. Okay.
While she's looking, I might mention too that the only place you can view anything about these items is from the scan ID, the scan item, the item status screen, because the only access to them is through the barcode.
Okay. I'm not seeing it as a choice. I was able to print all that information on the report that I generated.
Try just author now.
Okay.
It used to be that it showed as dummy only, but I think now,
Oh, they changed it.
yeah.
They changed it. Okay. So author now includes both the regular author and the dummy author. I mean, because that's the only author that this item knows is what's called a dummy author.
And the
when I'm
same with
pulling-
the title and ISBN as well.
Yep. Yep. And so my recollection was this one did not have an ISBN. But we could put it up there just to be sure. If I wanted to save these columns, I just come up here and click on save. And then each time in item status now, when I'm logged in as this workstation, it will display the author and ISBN along with the title for these precats. So what I'm going to do, and John Brockman and I and Cove will straighten this up later if I get the wrong version of the book in the system for them. But it gives us an example to kind of go through for a transfer, unless somebody else has another one that they know off the top of their heads. I'm going to open up another tab to import a record from Z39.50. And C is for Coyote. Look back over here. What was the author? Hellman. Okay. I've got several to choose from. Unfortunately, I do not know the year of the book. But if we need to delete this record and re-import it for Cove, we'll do that. And I'm going to look at the 2002 record. It does not have 264 and the 3TX fields for RDA, so I'm going to look and see if I can find a better one. Probably the fact that this is 2002, probably not. Okay. John, what's your sense for, do you think is probably the 2017?
Well, just looking down there at your options, the ISBN for the second LOC record says board book.
Mm-hmm.
It says 2017, and it's the same ISBN as the other 2017. So I of course don't know because I don't have it, but perhaps the board book is the 2017. I do know that Jeannie over at Cove is, Heather tells me she's doing an inventory this coming summer, and a lot of these she's going to discover. So at that point, we'll either delete or she may end up sending those to us to attach to records.
Okay. What's your preference? Should I attach to the 2017 or the 2002?
Well, looking up in the O2Os, this one says board book. I don't think that's what she has. So I would think 2002 is probably what she has. I'm just totally guesstimating here.
Yeah,
so
and that was my sense as well.
Better.
Okay. So I'll tell you a little hint here. Right now, with the system the way it is, when it's got something under publisher, that means it's in a 260 field as opposed to a 264.
Oh, thanks, Dia. That's a good help. So this record is better. It still has a 260, but I can switch. I can convert that over to a 264 when we're not in this phase of the. So I think I'll go ahead and attach to this one because we're not even sure whether it's exactly the right one anyway until we check with Cove. So at this point, I'll click on Edit, then Import. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that 907, make my 999. And I'll look over the record in more detail once we've gotten information from Cove and make some additional changes.
Real quick, what is a 561?
Yes.
I've never seen one of those before. I'm assuming it's
Well, yeah, this is a field we should get rid of. I think so,
kind of a
because it
donation.
looks local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for spotting that, Lisa. I would have spotted it later, but might as well get rid of it now.
I had never seen one. I wanted to know what it was and if I could use it.
Oh, I see. Well, we could look it up. Okay,
Yeah,
so
if you
now
could,
I've got a bib record in the system. The next thing that we need to do in transferring that item over to a regular bib is we need to go to Holdings View and actually just show empty libraries here. And I need to go down and create a volume or call number for this particular library. I'm going to show more libraries, see if Cove is in the list. Nope. Okay, there we go. I've selected Cove School. Come up under Actions. And I want to add a call number. Okay. All right. This is a case where I don't know how Cove is going to classify this. If this was in your library, what would you classify it as?
I think she uses E and then the last name of the author in caps.
The whole last name or just the first three?
I think it's the whole last name.
Okay. All right. Save and exit. Okay, now I should be able to, okay. All right, so we've got a call number record or volume record. The next thing I need to do is under Actions. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing. I need to go back. It's gonna let me go back.
At this point, just close that holdings editor and it should take you back to the record. The tab at the top.
Oh, guys. The joys of too many tabs open.
The joys of Monday.
Yes. Normally I would have a Cove School workstation, but I don't have one defined. So which is why going this way. Okay, so okay, we're back to our holding. Our volume record for Cove School, for C is for Coyote. We're going down to mark library call number as a transfer destination. Okay, you can see holdings transfer target set down here in the bottom right. And if our item status screen was still up, if I hadn't closed the client, then I would be able to go back to that tab. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another tab. Okay. And type that barcode into here. I want to mention that the steps that I'm going through, Dia has nicely put into a Word document, and if she's okay with that, I could put that up on the SageLib website for people to refer to.
You can do
as
that.
well. Okay. It basically just takes you through the steps that I've been doing right here. So in the other tab, we had marked that volume record as a transfer destination. So now in this item status screen, we can come over here. The item is selected. We can come over here, and under the transfer options, there's the option to transfer the item to a previously marked call number, and that's what we want to select. Okay. And what it does is it shows that this is the new call number that's associated with this record. And here's the actual bibliographic information. Now at this point, there's a couple different ways we could go to this item, and I'm trying to remember what you had in your instructions, Dia. Because we could go to the show in catalog from here. Okay. We see our item here. Could click on edit, or we could go to the holdings view. And under actions, click on edit call numbers and items. And at this point, you could modify the item to reflect, of course, I'm only seeing, okay, I'm seeing multiple locations because I'm logged in as a Baker workstation. So I'm going to choose the everybody shelving location for Cove School. I want to change the status to available. And the price I'll leave blank for now until I check with them. But this at least gets, let's see, change this to a book under circulation modifier. And if I think I've made all the changes I want to at this point, just click on save and exit. Okay, this sometimes happens depending on the route I've taken to get to the record. I just click on cancel click on save and exit again, and it saves it in case you encounter that. So that's just a quick run through of how to transfer to an existing bibliographic record. And like I said, I'll get those instructions that Dia put in a Word document up on the website. Any questions at this point?
And I might just mention that, like Beth showed a couple of different options than what my instructions say. So there are always, you know, a few things that could be different. That's just the workflow that I use when I make pre-cat changes.
Yeah.
And Beth, that spreadsheet that that you shared with our library and that we're going through and cleaning up and editing, is that something that you want other libraries to do? Do you need to send that out? Is that are those edits, the cleanup part, do you want each library to take care of that?
I think it's best. I'm certainly willing to help. It's just that they have a knowledge base I don't have for their local items. And I think I can go two different ways. I could split up this spreadsheet and send it out to individual libraries, or I could put it up as a Google Doc to share with everybody.
Deciding that, Lori asked a question in the chat. Is this demo for Cat 2s?
I think permissions wise, I
was going to say, I don't think Cat 3s can do some of the things permission wise, can they?
Well, they can't bring in a Z39.50 record for sure.
Right.
As far as the transfer to an existing bib and being able to create a call number record, they may be able to do that as a Cat 3. But I'm not positive on the permissions for the transfer. So yes, predominantly this instruction is for Cat 2 catalogers. And for Cat 3 catalogers that need help with cleanup, I'm available. I'm your mentor.
Yeah,
I'm sure would be glad
your
to help
mentors
too.
probably would be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So those are both good resources. And yeah, there's just, do you guys have a sense for what you would prefer? Would you prefer me to split this up and you get your own individual spreadsheet?
We had no problem just scrolling through till we found ours, and we'll just ignore everybody else's. I don't see why you would absolutely have to go to the extra work to split it up.
I agree.
Okay. All right, and I've created this as a report template that I can run over and over again. So if we want to do this on a monthly basis, we could, and have a new updated spreadsheet if there's a desire for it. So in the meantime, I'll convert this into a Google Doc and share it with the rest of you.
Well, and after the initial cleanup is done, it will probably be more obvious on if it's something that needs to be done monthly, quarterly, or twice a year. I know looking at hours, a lot of hours were pretty old, so I don't think it happens quite as frequently.
I can tell you, depending on the flow of a library, it can vary, but I do it twice a year with the 12 libraries in the Umatilla County Library District, and it's generally not huge unless something strange is going on.
Maybe we can do it monthly for a few months until we get a lot of the records cleaned up, and then just see what will be needed after that. Does anyone have any questions on who to contact if they go back and look at their list and they have questions? Contact your mentor. It's on the mentor list on the SAGE webpage. You can always, and Dia and Beth are on there also if you have a question specifically on something that they talked about this morning.
And if you have questions with the instructions, feel free to reach out to me. I do this on a very regular basis, so I'm pretty familiar with it. This is Dia, by the way.
Are there any questions right now that anyone has? Okay, it's a little after 12, so we're gonna move on. I'm gonna leave the screen with Beth to talk about Library of Things. The reason this is on the agenda is last week I sent an email out. Yes.
Usually these are only hour meetings.
Okay.
So
I had them on as
Yeah.
hour and a half. So
we may, yeah.
do we, the demo can wait for another meeting. The Library of Things, this was a question that a cataloger had. So I kind of feel like we need to go over that. Just to throw this out there, that the Library of Things. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I can make this really quick.
Great.
Library Things is a collection of what do I want to say? It's things that don't fit into our normal category. They're objects. They're things that our patrons want to check out, but there's a uniqueness about them that makes them a challenge to catalog. So we've got some libraries that have Library of Things objects in the catalog. We're working on a policy document to establish some guidelines for SAGE, because if you go out and look at records all around the cataloging community, you see a lot of difference. But what I wanted to go over real quick today is that we do have a template available under Create New MARC Record. And again, this is for two catalogers. And these records are these brief record, or these records can be filled in, and they're reviewed by Cat 1 catalogers or John or I, and we'll work with you to get the record improved. If there's deficiencies, the 599 in this record indicates original record needs review. This particular one is the Library of Things record. And it allows you to fill in what we consider required fields. Like I said, we're going to have some guidelines about this, but I know that you have a case where patrons are wanting to check these items out and you need to get records in the system, and we're willing to work with you to get them in there. I'm trying to think in a really quick, the 245 is obviously what the object is. The 246, there can be multiple 246s to help your patrons find whatever you're trying to catalog, whether it's cake pans, a game. In this 246, you can put your library name followed by cake pan in case they are looking specifically for your cake pan. It'll come up with this record. The 264, this second indicator 1 is for a publisher. In some situations, if you're creating the kit, then you might want to change this to a 3 for a manufacturer rather than a publisher. So that one is kind of dependent on what you're trying to catalog. The other important aspects of this template, the 506 can only be checked out and returned at owning library. This statement will kind of inform the patron in a note field that it's a local issue or a local item. But you need to work with John and I on circulation policies and hold policies if you're adding Library of Things items, so that we can gear those policies to what you want to have happen at your local library. The other thing, the 856 is for adding a link to more instructions. The 999, you can pull from our existing 999 list to put in here what you think is relevant to your Library of Things item. And the important part is this subfield F that says LOT, which allows the system to search specifically for Library of Things items. So if I wanted to search the catalog, I can come down here. I don't even have to enter anything in the keyword unless I want to, like cake pans or whatever. Library of Things is a search filter. Click on that and it will bring up all of the Library of Things records. These are all of the records that have that LOT in the subfield F. Okay. And like I said, we're going to cover this subject again, but I wanted to just give a really quick overview of that template that's available, and we'll work with individual libraries on getting that template filled out.
Perfect. Thank you, Beth. That's it, everyone. I won't take any more of your time. A last minute, anything else, people? If you have any questions, you can email me. I'll make sure and keep a running list to add to the next meeting. Any questions that come up from things that were discussed today, refer to your mentors. The next meeting will be Monday, February 7 at 11 o'clock. Before I sign off, is there anything else that needs to be thrown in here today? It's of high importance. All right, thank you everyone for the conversations, and it's really helpful to just get those questions out and discuss it all. So I really appreciate your time today. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and enjoy the snow.
Thank you, Celine.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Celine.
You're welcome, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care.